We fought. We fought with the trial court for the last 6 months to get testing done that the trial court not only refused to do, it neglected to do, despite knowing all of the illness that was going on in that building. We did the testing that the employees requested. We did the testing that the judges requested, that the community demanded. And the results are in. We pulled up the rugs. We went behind the walls. We got the answers. And it's unequivocal. That courthouse is littered with dangerous levels of toxic, cancer-causing mold. And it is not safe for the employees or members of the public to enter that building for any reason. We are hereby demanding again and requesting for the safety and health of the employees of that building and for members of the public and for the Western Mass community that that courthouse be closed immediately. And with that having been said, I'm going to turn it over to my co-counsel, Laura Mangini.
Thank you again, everyone. We just wanted to briefly go over the results of our expert testing so that everyone is aware of what was found in that courthouse. Inspection and sampling took place on February 7th and February 8th of this past year. There was a number of testing that was done, included air sampling, vacuum sampling, and swab testing. These samples were then sent to EMSL laboratories for independent analysis. The analysis was done at the PCR DNA level, which the trial court has refused to do on its own, even though we've been begging since September for them to do so. The PCR DNA level is necessary to determine the specific species of any mold that is found in that building. As we have said since September, just knowing that there is mold in the courthouse is not enough. We needed to learn the species of mold found to determine whether or not that mold is dangerous. It would be like someone telling you not to worry if you were just bit by a snake because it was just a snake, without telling you if you were bit by a garden snake or a rattlesnake. Now, unsurprisingly, the analysis showed that the courthouse contained numerous mold spores, including known molds that are known pathogens, or molds that cause disease and health issues. These pathogenic molds can produce toxins, which have demonstrated to produce neurodegenerative and cancer-causing effects in animals and humans. Pathogenic spores were found in the air samples, the dust samples, the swab samples, and the samples taken from within the closed wall structure. In other words, the spores were in the breathable air, the carpets, the exposed surfaces, and within the hidden spaces of the courthouse. Now, it should be noted that the American Industrial Hygiene Association states that there are no safe levels of uncontained pathogenic molds. In this case, our expert found pathogenic spores in one of the air handling units that provides air to approximately 25% of the occupied courthouse. Spores were also found in a separate duct of the same air handler that had fiberglass. According to the AIHA, this means that immediate steps must be taken to remediate the pathogenic spores found within the air handler and the duct unit. The EPA states that the HVAC system should not be run while it is contaminated. Our expert also looked at Judges Lobby 204A, the offices of Judge Coomer and Boyle. And unsurprisingly, there were dangerous pathogens found in that room as well. Studies have shown that the pathogens found in room 204A is one of the most dangerous species for humans in infected rooms, owing to the toxic and carcinogenic properties of that mold. An extremely high concentration of pathogenic spores were also found in dust samples in the lower level of the building, which indicates a widespread distribution of large numbers of pathogens. Therefore, prompt steps are necessary to contain and remediate the airborne and surface mold through the courthouse. We also did behind-the-wall testing, which again the trial court has refused to do, even though we've been begging for it since September. The behind-the-wall testing also showed significant numbers of known pathogens, indicating that mold-growing conditions likely exist inside these hidden spaces behind the walls. Additional invasive investigation behind the walls is necessary to determine the extent of remediation, if at all possible, and if necessary. Now, dust samples that were collected throughout the building were also analyzed on the ERMI interpretation scale. These levels all came back except for 2 at a level 4, and we have these results. If you'd like them, email me after, I can send them to you. This means that there's a high level of moldiness found in all of the dust samples, and further investigation is required to determine the source of that mold. The spores from these dust samples can become airborne during normal activity and also during cleaning. Now finally, our expert also compared the outdoor air samples with the indoor air samples, as the trial court did in September, to determine whether or not the outdoor samples were actually similar to those found inside. He found that the indoor air samples show that there's a larger quantity of indoor air mold spores than outdoors, and more importantly, that the fungal species are significantly different than the fungal species found outside. In other words, there's more dangerous mold spores found inside the courthouse than you find in normal everyday outdoor air. An exponential increase of mold, including pathogenic mold, is occurring within the courthouse. The simple truth is that this courthouse needs to be closed now. The people of Western between our health and justice. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over for any questioning that anyone might have. As of February, but again, this was the first time that testing was ever done there. So I think it's safe to assume that that mold has been behind the walls for a while. And we know that back in the summer of 2021, there was visible mold all over the courthouse, and people have also been getting sick in that courthouse with neurodegenerative diseases and cancers for decades.
Renovation plan includes new windows, a new roof, and a new HVAC system. That's clearly not enough to combat what is going on, what you found. Would you say that?
We do not believe that is enough, and more concerning is that they want to wait at least 2 years before they even plan to start those renovations, meaning they want people to stay within that courthouse for 2 more years at least. Additionally, they have not even decided if they're going to move people out of the courthouse when they do those renovations. We've been told that they're doing yet another study to determine whether or not they can somehow do those renovations safely with people still in the building.
And the fear is that all that's going to do is kick up even more of this.
We are not sure and find it highly unlikely that you would be able to pull out the windows, clean the HVAC, pull up the carpets without exposing the people that work in that courthouse on a daily basis to more and more toxic mold. It's just simply absurd to think that you could do it with people kept in that courthouse.
Now, do you think that the renovations should continue like either way, or do you think it should be rebuilt?
We are pushing for a new courthouse because we think Hampden County deserves a new courthouse. However, in the meantime, there are emergency interim measures that need to be taken to at least bring the courthouse to a level of safe occupancy so that people can work there.
And what would that include to
Closing the HVAC system until it's cleaned, remediating all of the black mold that's found throughout the building, doing additional testing to find out where dangerous toxins are also contained and remediating those areas. Those are the ones that come immediate to mind.
In the meantime, what are you telling your clients, the attorneys, people who work in that building every day? What's your message to those folks?
Unfortunately, at this time, the people that work in that building don't have, their only choice is to give up their paycheck or to go to work. So we're requesting that the trial court give people the option of either working remotely over Zoom or something else like what was done during COVID, or if they want to, they can go into the courthouse, but it's their choice and they don't have to worry about retaliation or about losing a paycheck. Any other questions?
Cheryl, can you talk about how this is going to impact operations for your office?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cheryl Coakley Rivera. I am the Register of Deeds. As soon as we saw the mold earlier, we walked out, obviously, with the district attorney. We still had some people in the building because we have some, in our plan department, the printer and some of the equipment we couldn't move because our space is very, very small. So obviously, since I received this report, I ordered everybody out, and we're going to make do. Everybody will work. Unfortunately, some of us are at Dwight Street and some of us are at Westfield. It's very close quarters, but we're not going back into that building. It is not safe, and people are dying. Like, that's what it's about, right? So I was just telling some of my friends here that, you know, if you worked in that building and you saw smoke, you would all leave. You wouldn't wait to find out where the smoke came from. You would just leave, right? Well, this is similar. This is like carbon monoxide. You can't see it, but it's there. And you roll the dice whether you live or not in 10, 20, 30 years. And I cannot, and the secretary obviously cannot, in good conscience, send anyone back into that building. I am in a different category because I'm not under the trial court. So I am under the secretary, and he's in full support.
So you've had this conversation with Bill Galvin?
I've had it with his first assistant.
Okay.
They've been in support. They've been, and we've been in contact with DCAM to try to get more space at Dwight Street, to try to get space so we're not on top of each other.
Little State House.
The little State House. Thank you.
When did you guys stop going in?
As soon as the mold came out. So most of us left. There were some people that go in to do plans and some other things. We have our books there, so we have to do land court. But after this came out, everybody's ordered out, and whatever we cannot get out of there now, then we'll see what happens. But I have a responsibility, you know. And the other thing, I did call on the unions. Violation of their contract. They are working in hazardous conditions. Therefore, they can go, they can walk out. We need those unions to come, rally the troops, get your employees, and get them out of this building. So I call on the unions in the Commonwealth and in this country to protect employees, especially when they're working in hazardous conditions. I'd like to introduce two of my colleagues, Rosemary Sakamani, the head of probate, and then Laura Gentile, the clerk of courts.
The secretary's leadership in ordering and allowing people to make a free choice as to whether to go into that building or to work somewhere else or to work remotely. That's what needs to happen here. And you're just getting the tip of the iceberg with this mold that's come out. We're also going to be doing testing for PCBs in the building, which is going to be coming up within the next month. We know for a fact that because of the time frame in which this building was built, that it is highly likely that the building materials contain PCBs. That includes the building materials that it was built with and the caulking in the windows. And we know, just from the pictures, from this case, from the complaints, from the repairs that have been done over decades of time, that these windows are no good, that there's leaks throughout the building, through the roofs, through the windows, which logically means that the caulking has deteriorated. If that caulking contains PCBs, as we expect, it is highly likely that at some point in time, if not still today, that PCBs were in the air within that building. And we're going to be testing for that as well.
What's your advice to people who have business in that courtroom? I gotta fight a parking ticket or whatever.
I wouldn't go in that building. I would seek a delay. I would seek an extension. I would try to go to another court. I would do anything that you can do other than put your health at risk. You're making a choice as to whether to go in there and get justice or whether to put your health at risk every time you walk through that door.
You talked about the testing. When is that being conducted? Are you guys doing further testing?
We're doing further testing with regard to PCBs, and we're likely to seek additional testing with regard to the mold now that we have evidence that there's bad mold within the building. The recommendations are, as you heard from Attorney Mangini, are to follow up and to figure out why is there mold in the building and to get the sources. But we know that mold comes from moisture, and just based on the DCAM report that you've all had a copy of, and the fact that there needs to be new windows, and there needs to be new rugs, and there needs to be new HVAC, all of those things suggest that there's so much moisture in that building on an ongoing basis that the mold is either, even getting rid of the mold, it's, unless you fix where the mold is going to be coming in from, it's just going to keep coming back in. So you can fix it from the inside, but if you're not fixing what's coming in from the outside, you're just going to continue to get mold over a period of time. So from our perspective, the building is really just needs to be either torn down or completely replaced. The amount of money that they plan to put in this building to make minimal repairs, leaving aside functionality of the court issues, court operations, technology that really needs to be improved in the courtroom, you're looking at a number to get a modern day courthouse that's well in excess of what the cost to repair would be, in our opinion. Western Mass and Springfield deserve better. Any other questions?
The species of mold found, you talked about neurodegenerative. The species of mold found, is it linked directly to Lou Gehrig's?
It has not been linked directly. There are studies that show that environmental conditions, including potentially PCBs and other toxic molds, are likely linked to ALS and Lou Gehrig's disease. But the molds that are found do have neurodegenerative consequences, and of course ALS is a neurodegenerative disease. So if there's no further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here and braving the weather for our press conference. Thank you. And we will keep you updated once the PCB testing comes out.
We're still talking about an April court date?
April 27th.
April 27th.
Correct.
Where?
The Supreme Judicial Court in Boston. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.